Imagine this. You're stripped bare, every possession gone, your head shaved, a number tattooed on your arm. You're starving, freezing, surrounded by death, and the most precious thing you own, the only thing you fight to protect, is a hidden scrap of paper containing lecture notes? Sounds utterly bizarre, right? A disconnect so jarring it forces you to ask, what on earth could possibly matter in a place designed to strip away every last shred of humanity? Stick around, because the answer to that question holds a secret weapon for surviving almost anything. This isn't just a hypothetical nightmare. This was reality for Viktor Frankl. Before the barbed wire and the smokestacks, he was Dr. Frankl, a respected neurologist and psychiatrist living a comfortable life in Vienna. He had a wife, a family, a career, a brilliant mind already exploring the very nature of meaning in life through his own school of psychotherapy, called Logotherapy. He was, by all accounts, a success. Then, history took a horrifying turn. The darkness swept across Europe, and Frankl, being Jewish, was caught in its path. Deportation. Cattle cars packed so tight, breathing was a luxury. And then arrival. Auschwitz. The infamous selection process, left or right, life or death, decided in seconds by the flick of an SS officer's wrist. Frankl survived the initial selection, but his parents, his brother, his pregnant wife, Tilly, they weren't so fortunate. He wouldn't know their exact fates for years, but the separation was immediate, brutal, and absolute. Stripped of his name, he became prisoner 119-104. Stripped of his clothes, given rags, stripped of his hair, his identity meticulously erased. The camps, Auschwitz, then others like Kaufering and Turkheim, sub-camps of Dachau, were factories of despair, engineered to break the human spirit before the body inevitably failed. Days were a relentless cycle of hard labor on starvation rations, punctuated by casual brutality, disease, and the constant looming threat of the gas chambers or random execution. Survival was a numbers game, a cruel lottery. But Frankl, the psychiatrist, couldn't switch off his analytical brain, even amidst the horror he observed. He watched himself. He watched his fellow prisoners. He saw men reduced to near animalistic states, fighting over scraps of bread. He saw others walk into the electrified fence, choosing a quick end over prolonged agony. He saw hope flicker and die in men's eyes, often noticing that this spiritual death, this giving up, preceded physical death almost predictably. When a prisoner lost faith in the future, refused to get up, refused to wash, smoked their last cigarette rations instead of trading them for vital food, their end was usually near. Yet amidst this crushing landscape of despair, Frankl witnessed something astonishing. Sparks of defiance. Not physical resistance, that was suicide, but something deeper, something internal. He saw prisoners comforting others, sharing their last piece of moldy bread. He saw men maintain their dignity against all odds, and he started to understand why some endured while others crumbled. It wasn't always the physically strongest who survived. It was often those who held on to a reason to live, a sense of meaning, however small or seemingly abstract. This is where Frankl's own theories, born in Vienna's cafes, were forged into unbreakable steel in the fires of the Holocaust. He realized that the ultimate driving force for humans wasn't pleasure, as Freud suggested, or power, as Adler proposed, but the search for meaning. And meaning, he discovered, could be found anywhere, even here. How? He identified three primary pathways. First, through love. Frankl clung fiercely to the image of his wife, Tilly. He'd have intense imaginary conversations with her during the freezing marches to work sites. He didn't know if she was alive or dead. Spoiler alert, tragically she wasn't. But the love itself, the act of holding her image in his mind, gave him profound strength. It was a private sanctuary no guard could breach. The intensity of that inner life, that connection to a loved one, became a powerful anchor. Second, meaning could be found through purpose or work. Remember that scrap of paper? It contained the manuscript for the book he was writing on logotherapy. Reconstructing that manuscript in his head, scribbling notes on stolen scraps whenever possible, became a vital task. He imagined himself, after liberation, standing in a lecture hall, teaching students about the psychology of the concentration camp, using his own horrific experiences as data. This future goal, this sense of unfinished business, gave his present suffering a context, a purpose. It transformed him from a passive victim into someone gathering crucial insights for a future contribution. It sounds academic, almost cold, but it was a lifeline. And the third source of meaning, perhaps the most profound in that setting, was finding meaning in suffering itself. This wasn't about welcoming pain, but about the attitude one chose towards unavoidable suffering.
Frankl famously wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." 1. He saw examples of this quiet heroism daily. The choice to remain courageous, dignified, and compassionate even when facing imminent death. The choice to bear suffering bravely, transforming personal tragedy into an inner triumph. This inner choice, this ultimate freedom, could not be taken away by any SS guard. It was the prisoner's final, inviolable territory. Frankl survived. When his camp was liberated, he weighed barely 100 pounds, suffering from typhus. Liberation wasn't the simple, joyous Hollywood ending one might imagine. It was complex, marked by a strange emptiness, a difficulty readjusting to freedom, and the crushing confirmation of his family's deaths. He had held on to Tilly's image so strongly, only to find she had perished. But he had his reconstructed manuscript, his experiences, his hard-won insights. In just 9 days, shortly after the war, he dictated his experiences and core philosophy into the book initially titled A Psychologist Experiences the Concentration Camp. Later, it became known worldwide as Man's Search for Meaning. The book became a global phenomenon, selling millions of copies in dozens of languages. Why? Because it addressed a fundamental human question. How do we find meaning in life, especially when faced with suffering? Frankl's answer, forged in unimaginable darkness, resonated universally. He argued that life isn't about pursuing happiness directly. Happiness is a byproduct of finding meaning. And meaning isn't some grand, abstract, cosmic puzzle we need to solve. Instead, life asks us what the meaning is. We answer life not with words, but with our actions, our choices, our responses to the challenges set before us. By taking responsibility for finding the meaning in each moment. His logotherapy became known as the Third Viennese School of Psychotherapy, focusing on this will to meaning. Its core idea is stunningly simple yet powerful. If you have a why to live, you can bear almost any how. Finding that purpose, whether through love, work, or courage in suffering, provides the psychological strength to endure hardship. Frankl's work wasn't just theory, it was lived experience, documented under the most extreme conditions imaginable. It's a testament to the astonishing resilience of the human spirit. It tells us that even when stripped of everything, we retain the power to choose our response, to find meaning, and in doing so, to preserve our inner freedom and dignity. His insights remain profoundly relevant, offering a powerful antidote to the despair, cynicism, and perceived meaninglessness that can plague modern life, reminding us that purpose isn't something to be found out there, but something to be created in here, through the choices we make every single day. Because in the end, the one thing they couldn't take away was his choice of how to respond. And that choice changed everything.